Hi there, I'm Paul Waldie, and I'm joined by David Parkinson, and we're talking about Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Poloz. Now, David, all eyes are going to be on the Bank of Canada Governor Wednesday as he makes the next rate announcement. We got some GDP numbers out today. Tell us a bit about them and how that might factor into his decision-making.
Yeah, well, obviously, if we back up a little bit, back in January, really, he and his colleagues at the central bank really surprised the markets with a rate cut that really hadn't been telegraphed all that well. So ever since then, people have been watching the data very closely to see if we've got another one coming up. Now, we had some strong gross domestic product numbers for the fourth quarter and for December that came out this morning. We had fourth quarter growth on an annualized basis, 2.4%. That's a little bit stronger than people were looking for, pretty close to where the bank's targets were as well for that. December numbers were actually a bit stronger than people had expected. And it does look as if, growth so far, despite the oil shock, is holding up reasonably well. But of course, December was very early in that oil shock. So we're going to have a lot more things to look for in the months to come.
Pretty hard to see in that scenario him cutting rates again, and that certainly was the expectation even after the last rate cut that he would cut this time. But that seems to be waning a little bit now. Yeah,
I mean, the flow of the data has been reasonably positive. We had some inflation numbers last week as well that, even though the overall number was pretty weak at 1%, actually had the core number, which the Bank of Canada looks at very closely, trying to gauge sort of overall pressures in the economy with the core figure, and it's still holding up over 2%. So it's going to be reasonably happy with that, reasonably happy with the growth, seeing some pretty good export numbers as well. And Stephen Poloz gave a speech in London, Ontario last week where the words coming out of his mouth, I mean, Bank of Canada governors are never crystal clear about this stuff, but the way he was phrasing things made it sound like, at least for now, he's reasonably happy holding the line.
Okay, at least for now. What about going forward, though, for the rest of the year? Are there those still expecting another rate cut later in the year?
Yeah, absolutely. The consensus is that something will happen before the end of the year, probably by around mid-year if it's going to. After mid-year, we start to see the exports sort of taking over from the oil shock and seeing generally positive numbers in the second half. So if anything's going to come, it's probably going to be in the first half. Now, the first quarter numbers we haven't seen yet, even though we're getting towards the end of that quarter. That's going to be critical because that's where the big part of the oil shock will have hit. And of course, Stephen Poloz has always described the rate cut that he did make in January as an insurance policy, buying some time to allow the economy to sort of absorb the oil effect and give it a little bit of a boost while it did that. So we'll really know in the next couple of months whether that worked.
Dave Parkinson, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.